Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast on a Tuesday night, the 25th, a little after 7. Special guest tonight, Zach Tremmel is in. Trevor's busy this week. I want to thank Zach for joining us. He's our replacement guy. He's always game for coming in when we need him. Really like getting his thoughts and his, kind of love of sports. And then obviously as a native Southeast Iowan, it's always good to have him, his opinions and everything here. We're going to start this episode with a non-sports topic that's happening, kind of a long ways from us, but I think it will affect us in the coming probably about week, maybe a little bit less. But it is the flooding in Northwest Iowa. Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Okoboji, Spencer. I've been to all those places, and actually, I just saw today that some roads in like I-29 around Omaha, Council Bluffs is closing because obviously all the water is just coming down the rivers. Okoboji, and especially with this next weekend, not in like 3 days, but in 10 days is the July 4th weekend. The economy of that part of the state, and then as you get up into South Dakota and further up the Missouri River, lots of lakes, lots of summer homes. The economy of that part of the world right now is in jeopardy. The summer is where they make their money. There's lots of resorts on Okoboji and Spirit and some of the lakes up there that they make all their money from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And probably July 4th is their number one week because there's lots of people, especially this year with July 4th being a Thursday. You get done with work Wednesday, you drive up, you stay there, but then you stay Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you head home. And I know people there. I've stayed at those lake places, and it's just sad. And it also shows you the immense power of water. I was listening to somebody talk today that there might be not a more powerful, thing on this earth than moving water. You think about the Grand Canyon and things. Over time, water will wash away everything. And it's heartbreaking to see, being in Oskaloosa, we're pretty close to the Des Moines River. Obviously, we're not going to flood here, but the Des Moines River is going to come up. And luckily, we have Saylorville Lake and Red Rock Lake to control it. But over by Sigourney, where Zach's from, in between Oskaloosa and Sigourney, is the Skunk River. That river is uncontrollable, so it's going to come and it's going to do whatever it does. The Missouri River, there's dams above Sioux City, but once you get past Sioux City, there's not any more dams to control it. And then the Mississippi River obviously is controlled by locks and dams. But if you can't control the water, it's just going to go wherever it is. And most of us in Iowa and everything have seen the images of the dam by Mankato, where the water essentially just goes around it because it was rushing too fast. And just imagine if something like that would happen at Saylorville or Red Rock and what would happen. I know that was a 3-4 minute kind of monologue there, but Zach, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Any of your opening comments or anything?
Yeah, it's just, just seeing all the videos, pictures and stuff on Facebook. It's almost like so hard to believe. It's such surreal just seeing what's going on, seeing like baseball fields that are completely washed away. The whole town of Spencer the water was up above Casey's. I mean, the whole town, it's just, they're going to be set back for years and, they'll get through it, but it's going to be a rough stretch for, a good year or so just to try to rebuild their towns. But it's so hard to believe.
I mean, you think about Spencer, where are you going to go to get gas? Where are you going to go to get groceries for the next year? Like exactly what you said. Casey's is underwater. I saw O'Reilly Auto Parts. I mean, it's every store in the downtown is it's not 2 feet of water. It's like 8 to 10 feet of water. And I don't know if you've ever seen flooding or been involved in that, but it's not just the water there. When it leaves, it just leaves mud. And you just get mold and you just essentially have to tear it out. Even, just when your sewer backs up or, too much water gets in your basement, it'll ruin a basement, let alone 8 feet of water. And that's just a few inches.
It's going to totally destroy, houses. I mean, they're going to have to rebuild. I mean, I just remember when Iowa City and Cedar Rapids were flooding. I mean, the water that how high it was. I mean, it's almost impossible to believe. Like in Cedar Rapids, it was all the way up to the interstate, and that it's just crazy that water can get that high. But we'll obviously think about them, and hopefully they can get through this, and it'll just be interesting to see how things shake out from it.
There will be parts of Spencer that aren't rebuilt. There'll be parts of Rock Valley. There will be, it'll be interesting to see what happens right there at Mankato where that dam is. Will they rebuild it? Look, it's not a new dam. It's not a, will they make something new? I just think of Red Rock Dam and how much they've been working on that. Now I know they turned that into a hydroelectric, but they've been working on that for 10 years. And that was a planned thing, not an emergency situation where you have to wait for the water. And there's going to be tons of engineers just trying to figure out how to make it safe around there. And I did see today that there's, yards in Okoboji. And, I don't go to Okoboji a lot. We have family friends that have their place on Spirit Lake, which is different. But half their yard is gone. It's just like a mudslide. It's 10 yards. And then, Okoboji in general just is kind of slowly just walk out. It's not quite like Lake of the Ozarks where it is just straight down to the lake. It's a nice, gentle walk out to the lake, and it's just washed away. And you can't replace that. And so it's just going to be different. And you think about all the retaining walls and everything that are just gone that are going to have to get rebuilt. And that doesn't happen overnight.
I think I saw that dam in Mankato was built in like 1909 or something. So obviously things have changed, but obviously they did a heck of a job building it. So it'll be interesting just to see they're going to have to, even if they think it's safe, there's going to be engineers in there, like you said, checking everything. And, it'll be a process to see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, just again, thinking of that part of the state, I have friends, and live in Lamar's and they have, one that lives in Des Moines, but then they have a lake house up even further. And then it's going east. A few years ago, we went up to the Boundary Waters and right along, the north shore of Lake Superior. There's a good waterfall that we went and looked at and everything. And I saw how it was flooded. And coming up in a month, we're going to northern Wisconsin, right along there. And I don't know if the storm and all that rain has happened there and what it'll be different there. But water is a powerful force. And the sad thing too is, and I've talked to some people that are in the roofing business and everything, and I think we talked about it the other day, but just insurance is so much of a big deal now with the derecho and several, tornadoes. Another, weather phenomenon, the Greenfield tornado, which, obviously I'm very close to, was the highest recorded wind ever. Not when it actually hit, but that tornado was over 300 miles an hour at one time. Now, it was not that when it actually hit the town, but that's unbelievable. That strongest tornado ever recorded this year. And then this flooding that's higher than 93, higher than 08.
Yeah. I mean, and like you talked with insurance, I mean, there's a lot of insurance companies that are that are pulling out of Iowa and aren't even going to insure people in Iowa. And I just don't know what people are going to do. I mean, something's got to happen, but I obviously don't have the answers there.
Yeah, it's way beyond our pay grade, but we both are very lucky and are able to do this, but it does change things. Someone buys a house and I saw that, maybe it was in Louisiana, but Habitat for Humanity homes, that company usually pays, their mortgages, their insurance and everything, and they're having trouble doing that. And just because they budgeted for this certain amount and it's all of a sudden went up 30% or 50% or 100%. Or as you said, there's just companies that aren't insuring them at all. And then you got to find another one and you're just stuck for whatever percent that is of a hike. And your options are more limited now than they've ever been. And that's tough for some people.
Yeah. It's right now things are tough, pricing everything's just going up. And then I feel like, we're seeing all this catastrophic weather, and insurance companies don't want anything to do with it because rebuilding is just extremely costly right now. And it's some tough times right now.
Yeah. So good luck to everybody up there that's been affected, and we're thinking of you, and hopefully they can get back and salvage what they can as soon as they can, and then start figuring out their lives going forward. And unfortunately, it's not going to be a quick fix. All right. Now we'll transition to sports. Obviously, less heavy here, and it's what you use to get away from things like that. So hopefully, some people have been able to gather in places and enjoy some of this. We had one of the best things in sports last night. We really had two of them, but number one, Game 7, Stanley Cup, where essentially they play till they. I mean, it could go a million overtimes. They're playing until someone wins. Now it didn't. It was 2-1. Florida won. There's lots of storylines to that. One, no Canadian team in over 30 years have won. Florida now has 3 Stanley Cups in the last 4 years. I mean, which is crazy. 2 with Tampa and now 1 with Florida. And, you had the storyline where Florida tries to choke it away, but then hangs on, or Edmonton comes all the way back from 0-3 for the first time, I believe, since 1942 in the Stanley Cup final. And then I'm not a hockey guy. I don't watch hockey, but the last, 6-7 minutes of that hockey game last night is some of the most fun in sport, because everybody's, full go. Every pass matters. Every check matters. Every shot matters. And it changes your life if you get your name. The beautiful thing about the Stanley Cup, every person's name gets put on it. And it's on there forever. And I heard today that Evan, for the first time, is now on that Stanley Cup. Somebody from Florida's named Evan. That's awesome. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of awesome. And then I saw today that they took it out to the ocean. And the things that Stanley Cup has seen and done their stories that can be told and stories that can't be told.
Yeah, you get a game. I mean, any sport, you get a Game 7. Hockey's not my favorite sport by any stretch, but we had talked yesterday as well that I was for sure going to tune in for that. I mean, and like you said, those last 6 minutes, I mean, Edmonton was just on the offense over and over. I mean, they were gassed at the end, and
the last 2 minutes they were actually done.
Florida was fighting them off. I mean, it was just good TV, and Connor McDavid still was the MVP of the series, which you don't see very often. I think that's the second time ever in the NHL when that happens on the losing team. But it was a fun game to watch. I'll be honest, it was the only game of the Stanley Cup that I watched, but I'm glad I tuned in. I mean, anytime you get a Game 7 in professional sports, a deciding game, the pressure is just you can't even hardly describe it, and it was fun to watch.
And the crazy thing, the NBA just finished. NBA drafts tomorrow night. NHL just finished, and they start in September. They actually just announced preseason game in Des Moines, St. Louis Blues versus the new Utah club. And that game's like September 30th or somewhere right in that week or so. I can't remember exactly. But they're going to be back at it in a month and a half. And that's the only it's June 25th, and they're playing ice hockey in South Beach. I mean, that's the only crazy part about it. But I understand why they do it. And when you have 7-game series, you find out who truly is the best team for the most part. I mean, there are upsets, but the upset, it's not football where it's one game and done. It's not the NCAA tournament where it's one game and done. Those are not situations that lead yourself to finding the best team. Now, football, usually the best team wins. It's just the way the sport is configured. It's hard for a team to upset. And then you might get one upset, but then say that's in the division series or divisional game, then they're going to have to go win the conference championship game, and that's really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to your initial point there with, they restart in September. It's just, like you said, I mean, a lot of it's financially they've got to play these games, but it's just hard to pay attention to professional sports that are playing 80 regular season games or 162 in baseball. It's just I just don't have the attention span to tune in and watch that as opposed to football or college basketball. But when you get to the playoffs in these sports, I think it's a whole different game. I mean, especially in the NBA, I watch a lot of that. Regular season games are not that exciting. It's all about getting into the playoffs, and then I just think the level of play goes up, and it's a whole different game to watch. And I am sure NHL is the same way, and baseball's the same thing. I just I'm watching now because the Mets are playing the Yankees, but usually I don't tune into a whole lot of Mets games, and hopefully they can get in the playoffs. But you'll watch the playoffs, but these long regular seasons are just they're drug out, and it's got to be taxing on these athletes, like you said, that are playing till the end of June. And then, obviously the superstars probably aren't coming in September, but those ones trying to make the team, they're going to be back at it again in a couple months. And it's a grind.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people do it, but I would have a real hard time planning, if your son or daughter, or you're a LeBron James fan and he comes to Minnesota to play, or Milwaukee or Chicago, those are the three closest to spend the kind of money it takes to go watch a game. I don't know if you can do it because there's no guarantee they're going to play. And it's sad and you wish it was different, but I also understand it. LeBron James played 8 straight years into the finals. So, yes, he's played 20 years in the NBA, but probably game-wise, he's probably played 25 years. Maybe more. I don't know. And you can't blame him. Tim Duncan was really the first one, and David Robinson and Greg Popovich, they were really the first ones to start to do that with the load management. And I think it's horrible for the sport, and I think it's horrible for fans, but I do understand it for the athletes because it is all about just getting to the playoffs, and then they play. If you go to a playoff game, those guys aren't sitting. But if they can give a guy an extra 2-3 days, and especially NBA, Tim Duncan, those are not normal sized people. Anytime you can not get on a plane, not stay in a hotel room, not just do everything that just, have you heard that new kid that's going to go to Florida that's 7'9"?
Yeah, I
Think
saw
about what
that.
he does. He has to duck through almost every doorway he's ever walks through. It's something we have no idea about, and just, finding a bed to sleep in, finding a chair to sit in that's comfortable. Just these people are, you hate to say it, but a little bit abnormal for the most part. Everybody's in the NBA, most people are 6'6" or taller. There are your 6'2" guys, but most of those guys, that's the difference between college and the NBA, because they're all so much bigger, just as athletic, but they're, instead of 6'4" and this athletic, now they're 6'9" and that athletic. That's the difference. And everything they do every day and the amount of money they get paid, they just cannot stand to get hurt. So letting them sit a day or two, financially, they figured it out. It works for them. And as long as everybody's making money, which it seems to, even Major League Baseball, who doesn't want you to watch their sport because you can't get it on any regular TV. The only time you can watch them is it's on ESPN or you buy a special sports package. Mm-hmm. They put no highlights on Twitter or anything because of those TV contracts. And then here in Iowa, we're blacked out of every game. The Twins are supposed to be on Major League, MLB network, but it's blacked out, so you can't watch them. But they still keep signing all these, huge contracts. So all these teams are still making all kinds of money. So nothing's going to change.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the way it is now. I mean, there's, with social media, everybody knows everything. I mean, I get it. Back in the 80s, I mean, and before 90s, the superstars played nonstop. But I just think with all the pressures now, like if LeBron goes down in a November game, I mean, they're done. The Lakers are done. They're not doing anything. And They have got to be in the playoffs. You've got to have your players for it. The amount of money, like you said, they're playing. I mean, it's all about the playoffs or bust in most of these professional sports. Obviously, NFL is a little different because they don't play near the games, and I think that's why NFL's the king in this country. I mean, you miss one game, you're missing a 17th of the season. So everybody tunes in on Sunday, Monday, Thursday. I mean, they're playing about every
Friday now. I
like,
think this year coming up, just because of the way Christmas and everything falls, I think they play a game every day but Tuesday, because I think Christmas is a Wednesday. They always do the Thursday games, and they're doing Black Friday games. I mean, it's going to be interesting. And I haven't had you on here for a while, but a couple things kind of going back that we talked about. Who do you think wins that December 21st? I think is the date where it's the first round of the playoff in NCAA versus, it's obviously right before Christmas. I think the Chiefs are playing somebody. There's 2 or 3 games on that Saturday, which they've always done, and there's always been bowl games, in quotes, that time, but it's never been the playoff.
That's a good question. I mean, are they playing at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 playoff games, so essentially they're going to have to play, I would think, noon, 2:30, and then 7.
I'm sure it'll be like the NCAA basketball tourney. You're going to have a lot of households that are going to have multiple TVs set up. I mean,
That's what I got. I have 2 TVs set up at
I
all
would
times.
probably lean towards the college playoff game if it was me, but
oh yeah, for me too. But
turns into a blowout, I'm probably going to the NFL. Or I mean, I'll have them both up. That's just the way it is now, either on a phone or something. But
do you think that's what they're counting on? It's just everybody's going to watch them both?
Maybe. I mean, you can pull it off pretty easy this day and age.
Oh yeah, all you need is, a TV and then a phone. I mean, there's 2, and everybody has that for the most part. And then you put an iPad or a computer on, and then there's 2 more. I mean, I can get 5 TVs real quick without having, more than 2 TVs, a computer, an iPad, and a phone.
But if you got a playoff game, I don't know, let's say it's Alabama versus what round is it? The first round?
The first round. There's a game on Friday. So there's 4 games. There's a game on Friday night, which will be a standalone game. So that'll probably be your biggest game.
Yeah.
And then
these are all home sites too, right?
Yes, so that's what it's the first one. So these are home. So it could be
Penn State and Alabama.
Yeah, Notre Dame is hosting, let's just say Florida State or Clemson. Yeah. Those are the type of games. I mean, it's going to be big time.
The Chiefs are a big draw, though. I don't know. That would be you get a Chiefs game versus a playoff game. I don't know. Like I said, I'm picking college football, but it wouldn't shock me if more people watch that Chiefs game. But man, that's going to be interesting numbers to check out.
Yeah, it'll be. I think this entire college football year is going to be interesting with the 12-team playoff.
For sure. I'm excited.
Well, let's kind of get into this, and we're kind of backtracking, and Trev and I have talked about this, but we haven't got your thoughts. But the Big 12 with their naming rights, probably, going to be the Bucky's Conference, or however you say it. It doesn't matter, All-State Conference or the All-State 16. Overall, okay. Now, selling 20% of the league to the private equity, that's a whole different animal. And I understand that all they're trying to do is they're trying to get closer to the Big Ten and SEC. And do you think the SEC and Big Ten are too high on themselves to sell themselves out? Or I don't think they'll do it first, but if they see it works for the Big 12 and the Big 12 gets just a little bit closer, they're going to jump at it because they want to keep that distance.
So are we like, when you talk this, are we saying the Big 10 or the Big 12 would just drop their name? It wouldn't even be Big 12. It would just be Bucky's Conference.
Yeah. It's not the Big 12 Conference presented by Bucky's. We're using that for example.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see the Big 10 or SEC doing that right away. I mean, if the Big 12
I do think
off of it, it could happen.
Yeah, if it works for the Big 12, but I do think the Big 10 and SEC are big enough to say, and probably not quite get the same amount of, probably actually the same amount of money, but it would be the All-State Conference or the Big Ten Conference presented by Gamebridge. Let's just use it. They're in Indiana there,
Yeah.
right in the middle of the Big Ten. Or an SEC, I think Trevor used Publix, which is their grocery store in the Southeast, something like that. I do think the Big Ten and SEC want to create that because they have the 100-year, existence. The Big 12 doesn't have that. 1996 is when it started. And then obviously half the teams or 3/4 of the teams are new in the last 4 years anyway.
I mean, they Big 12 is going to need anything they can do to gain an edge. So why not give it a shot and see how many millions you can get out of this deal for the next 10 years or something? I'm sure they'll.
And that's the thing is you're going to have to sign kind of a long-term deal because you don't want every 3 years the Buc-ee's conference and then the Whataburger conference. I get that happens in stadium. That happens in stadium. Remember Enron with the
Stadiums,
Astros.
bowl games are the same way. You don't even know what the games are half the time anymore.
And that's the other question. Would you still call it the Big 12? Yes, it's, when it's printed out or when the announcers say it, it's whatever, but will you still call it the Big 12? I probably would, at least for a while.
For a while, a couple of years, and then you might eventually, did they call it the Big 8 for a while when it switched to the Big 12? I remember when it happened. I just don't remember the the whatever conference it was.
Right. I agree. The old Big 8 or whatever you want to,
Yeah. Pac-10. I still call that the Pac-10 a lot.
Yeah.
It's just kind of what it is.
I remember the Big 10 had the 11 inside the Big 10.
Oh.
Yeah, it's college sports are different. They're not, always was the big argument was amateurism. It's not amateurism. It is college sports. And that's just the way it is now.
It's basically professional in my book.
Yep.
So,
and then the other thing that was going on at the same time, and this is what I had the two games on my two TVs, was the Game 3 of the College World Series. Have you ever been out there to watch that?
I have not.
I have not been for a long time. I went quite a bit in high school. I remember watching Mark Pryor for USC. I might have been in college then. And I've been out there since a couple times. But Game 3, Texas A&M, Tennessee. Did you watch any of it or watch the highlights or anything?
Yeah, I got back from a baseball game, had the hockey game on, and then was switching back and forth to the deciding College World Series game as well.
Yeah, so 6-5 Tennessee wins on an unbelievable slide. That will go down. That highlight will be played. At the time it wasn't necessarily the winning run because they were ahead 6-3 or whatever, but it ended up being the game deciding run. And there are a lot of backstories to that game. Obviously, Game 3, Tennessee won the last two to go. Tennessee was the overall number 1 seed. First time since Miami, like in the early 2000s or late 90s, as the number 1 seed to win it. And then the coaches were on the same staff at TCU. The Tennessee coach was his recruiting coordinator. And then this came out today, but the A&M coach left today to go to Texas. And that just goes to show you the hierarchy in money in the state of Texas. TCU, A&M, and for all the money A&M has, there's a school up the road that has more, and that's Texas.
Texas is king. They stole.
I think Texas is probably king in all of America. Don't you think?
Tech's basketball coach. Texas came about. Well, they couldn't get Saban. That was the one person they tried to get in football. They could never pull,
and that was the one school they couldn't get them from.
Yeah.
Now, I think Nate Oates, the basketball coach, if Texas wanted him or wants him, it's a different animal. But Alabama football is right at the top.
And now, I don't know. Where is it at the top anymore, or is Texas a better job? We'll find out here in the next few years. Saban made that into a powerhouse of our era. That's for sure. They've been good before, but before that they weren't anything great. It was probably Florida, USC, those type of schools were better.
Absolutely. And then do you think actually Oklahoma's been better in the last 10 years or 15 years in the Big 12 overall in most sports and just everything? Texas has just kind of struggled. But I think going forward, Texas has a better chance to be better in the SEC because they do have, unlimited money. And with the NIL situation and the transfer portal, no one's going to outbid Texas, and I think Texas will be better in the SEC than Oklahoma.
I would think that as well. I mean, I could see Texas is already starting to gain some traction in football, and especially with if it wasn't an NIL thing, I think Oklahoma could still be right there because they recruit out of Texas pretty darn good themselves. It's just a matter of how much money Texas has compared to what Oklahoma has, and ultimately, I mean, you may bleed burn orange or whatever, but it's going to come down to who gives you the most money anymore. Just like a free agent in professional sports. I mean, if Iowa offers me 100,000 and Iowa State offers me $1 million, you're going to Iowa State over Iowa. I mean, that's just the way it is. Even if you hate the school, I mean, you got a certain amount of time in your life to make money, so you got to do it.
Absolutely. And I don't know how much I watched a lot of the College World Series, and it was amazing the amount of players that had transferred. There was a guy on A&M yesterday that he came in late. They walked him, and then he played second base, but like the last 2 or 3 innings, he was an all-conference second baseman. I think 1 or 2 times. He was on the bench, hardly played because they got a bunch of transfers in.
And I think
and that's the sad reality of, and Brody Breck's a little bit different. I think he literally bled the Hawkeyes, and I think he probably got all the NIL in all of Iowa and that they could muster.
Yeah.
But players like that aren't going to stay at Iowa anymore.
It's going to be hard, especially, I mean, what's SEC won? 5 straight?
Yeah.
All different schools.
Well, and then, I mean, now.
And the ACC had the other half of the World Series. So you're dealing with basically 2 conferences had all the spots in the College World Series.
Well, then you look at the softball World Series, it was Texas and Oklahoma, which is Big 12, but now that's SEC. And then the Pac-12 is done. So you might actually get some Big 10. USC and UCLA might have a chance. The Big 12 might get back in a little bit. Arizona State. But then I think, Oregon. The interesting one is Oregon State baseball. I don't know what they're going to do. They've been good. They've won a World Series.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I mean, if you're elite, you're probably going down south. They're going to give you more money. You've got better weather to play. I mean, unless you just don't move far from home. Otherwise, you're heading to the SEC or something, in my opinion.
Yeah, the guy that won the World Series MVP was from Hays, Kansas, played at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And, Hays, Kansas is a lot different than Des Moines, Iowa for weather. Hays, Kansas, you can play down by Wichita. You can play a lot. You might have the month of January where you may not be able to. But then you have the question too, you're the best player in Iowa, go to Iowa and go be a superstar for a year, knowing that essentially it's like a junior college. Like when we were in school where you went to a junior college, maybe you didn't get that offer you wanted. So you go to Indian Hills. If you were the basketball guy, you went to Indian Hills, go be a stud there, then you can go wherever you want. Now go to Iowa, be a stud, then you go. I mean,
it's just like basketball. That's what the Missouri Valley is going to turn into.
It's junior college.
Those kids are going to go to UNI. If I can go to UNI and drop 25 a game, there's going to be Power 5 schools coming fast, and they're not going to stay.
Yeah, and you're going to get $500,000 a year. Well, Joseph Yesufu went to Kansas. I heard he got $500,000, sat the bench, won a national championship. And you said it best. You only got 4 or 5 years to make some money for a lot of these guys, and I can't blame them.
No, it's just the world we're in now. I mean, it's going to be hard to coach in the Missouri Valley. You still got your auto bid, but man, your turnover of teams is going to be insane from year to year. You're going to deal with a whole new set of players about every year.
Well, I mean, even Iowa State does that. I mean, they got 6, 7 new guys every year.
And it gives, D2 kids, I guess, hope as well. You go to D2 and you're good. Now all of a sudden, You can move up to UNI or Drake or something like that.
Think of Hankins from Atlantic, who went to Northwest Missouri State, won a national title 3-4 years, and then made a huge contribution to Creighton.
Yeah,
That wasn't just going to UNI; that was going to Creighton.
It's just how it's going to be now. I don't know if it's for better or worse. I think that's a question that can be answered in 5-10 years.
Yeah, coaching I think you just have to embrace that each roster in each year is different. I think it's just like a junior college. It's just like the Indian Hills job.
Yeah.
Now at Indian Hills, you're still trying to send some kids there, but now I think almost Indian Hills is you recruit those guys. Well, think of Curtis Shaw for Iowa State, or Curtis Jones. He went to Indian Hills, then went to Buffalo, and then back to Iowa State. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get Indian Hills is now, instead of sending people to Iowa State, they're going to send people to Buffalo or to UNI or to Drake one more year. Then they're going to go to Iowa State, Iowa, Creighton, you name the. So they just got one extra step to go. Now there's unlimited transfers. I mean, it's wherever you want to do.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the unlimited stuff, but that's a conversation for another day.
And then, kind of the last thing I want to talk about, just your feelings on the WNBA. And you bring a little bit different insight to this. You've coached girls basketball and coached, volleyball. So coached, girls sports more than I coached girls golf. That's a different deal. But you've coached girls basketball. You've coached girls volleyball as a head coach at the high school level. WNBA, how much different it is from college, and then just kind of your take, Caitlin Clark, the Olympics, Angel Reese. I saw today where CBS now ranked Angel Reese the number one rookie so far. I think it's clickbait. I think if they just want that clicks to someone to click on it. I think if the rookie of the year was announced today, I still think it would be Caitlin Clark. She's setting all kinds of records as a rookie in the WNBA. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I will give Angel Reese credit. She's playing pretty darn good.
That game she had Sunday was really good.
And I think I said this a couple of weeks ago. Maybe we were talking. I was about done with the WNBA there, but it's gotten better. And I think a lot of that is, I only watch the Fever games, that's probably 80% of the United States at this point. But I mean, they got thrown to the wolves early. They were playing the best teams over and over. They weren't able to practice. They looked awful. The game was awful to watch. But it's gotten better. I mean, I watched that game Sunday, and it was good TV. I enjoyed watching every bit of it. I think Boston's gotten better. That really helps.
That's the number one thing, I think.
She is playing much better. They still miss layups left and right. But again, a lot of that is in an NBA. They're not shooting layups. They're going to go up and throw it down and dunk it. I mean, they're not.
Who was saying that? You listen to those same talk shows. Was that Travis or was that Ross?
I don't remember that, but yeah.
One of the, they were saying that is, you don't see missed bunnies in the NBA or college basketball because the men dunk it.
Yeah, they're going to go up and throw it down. Here, I mean, men can turn, drop, step, dunk. They're all 7 foot and 40-inch verticals. Girls are, they're tall ones, or you might get a 6'5", 6'6", but a lot of them are 6'3", and they're not going to be able to turn and dunk it. But the game's gotten better. Again, I watched the Fever. I'm not going to be a fan who's going to just randomly tune into the Mystic versus the Liberty by any stretch. But I think Caitlin and Angel Reese, she has, she's kind of the one people want to hate, but she embraces the role, and it's good. It's good TV. I mean, they're getting talked about probably more than the NBA easily. So, you got your Caitlin missed the Olympics. I mean, there's two sides to that story. Does she deserve it? Probably not, but they want to grow this sport. That was a major miss right there, in my opinion.
I think
I couldn't
NBC people just have to
name
be
3 people that are on that team.
Yeah, the NBC just has to be like, what the heck are you thinking? It have to be.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, they could have put Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, and someone else on the 3-on-3 team, and that would have drew massive numbers. I mean, I don't get any of it, but I mean, I think the All-Star, where the All-Stars play the Olympics, that's going to draw a hell of a lot more people than any Olympic game that they play in.
Yeah. Do you think that she gets? Do you think she gets added if someone gets hurt or someone can't play, or are they that petty they're just going to leave her off to make the point?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard though, like if Brittany Griner can't play or something, they wouldn't add her. They would add a post player,
which makes sense basketball wise, but
it makes zero. I don't care if you set her on the bench the whole time. You're still going to have people viewing in. If they want to complain, like if they're chanting to put her in, they're going to blow people out. So she's going to get a lot of playing time, in my opinion. Does she deserve to go in there and start? No, but I mean, it just makes no sense in the world to not put her on the team when you're sitting on a $1 billion player right here just to bring eyeballs in, and you're not doing it. I just don't. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And I've said this with Trevor, but I think the biggest thing is you missed an opportunity for her to form a relationship with AJ Wilson and maybe get to know Diana Taurasi a little bit better and maybe not have the animosity towards her. They're all jealous of her, and that's okay. I get it. And most of them might be better basketball players, and that's okay. But there was a chance for all them to get to know each other better as people.
I mean, I wouldn't have been opposed to putting Angel Reese on the team as well. That's more eyeballs. She does. I mean, she gets a lot of clicks. A lot of people follow her.
Right.
But you put those two on the team together, even if they're sitting on the bench next to each other.
Well, yeah, you see them cheering and smiling. Yeah. Waving towels that they're not going to show their animosity in front of people in front of the Olympics. They're going to represent the United States the best they can.
Yeah. I mean, they would have brought a lot of coverage to NBC, and it would have grown the game. It made no sense to me, but the way they've been running the WNBA the first few months here has just been ridiculous, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's the NBA needs to step in and just take over their marketing.
I agree, because they pay for it. They should actually be running it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? That's about 40 minutes or so. Probably good.
No, I think, obviously we're kind of in that time right now where there's just not a lot going on. I mean, we've got golf.
NBA draft is tomorrow.
Open. Yeah, I know nothing about the NBA draft. I couldn't even tell you the players.
Well, and let's talk about that for a second. That is a problem. And that is a direct response to all the transfers. Now, I think that G League Ignite has folded, but there's still some players on that are going to get drafted tonight. And then the foreigners, which the foreigners have always kind of been that way. And there's always going to be 4 or 5 guys, since about 2000 that have always been drafted that you didn't know anything about. And they usually end up really good guys like, Dirk and Luca and Joker. And, those guys they're coming in. It may be a year or two, but when they get here, they're going to be superstars.
Yeah. And I think you're going to start seeing even more of them. I mean, NBA has grown globally, in the past 25 years more than probably any other sport. And it's just proven in the NBA. I mean, some of our best players, if not the best, are from overseas. And yeah, so it makes the draft kind of boring when you hear some crazy name. But like you said, they usually pan out when they do get drafted. But as far as American players, I know that UConn center, and Klingham. That's about the only one I could.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Zach Edey, the big guy, will go.
Yeah, I mean how many did he have in that national championship game against Klingham? He had 38 or something.
That's what they decided to do, is just let him have his and took everybody else away.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'll even tune in for the NBA draft if I have.
And they said this is the worst draft. Is it since 2000? Now I saw this today. Who was the number 1 pick in 2000?
LeBron.
Huh?
LeBron.
Nope. LeBron was after this, I'm pretty sure. You'll know it when you hear it.
Dwight Howard.
Huh?
Dwight Howard.
Nope.
Who was it?
Kenyon Martin. because the only reason I know this is this was a big deal because he broke his leg in the NCAA tournament, and they got a number 1 seed still over Iowa State, who had the 2, and then they had to play. Mateen Cleaves was drafted like 14th. Marcus Fizer was 4. He was a bust. Kenyon Martin never. I mean, he played in the NBA for quite a while, but wasn't a stud. Jamal Crawford was drafted like 9th, and he's probably the best player out of the whole first round. That's not good.
No, I remember that Cincinnati was really good with Kenyon Martin. I think they beat Duke in Alaska for the Alaskan championship. But yeah, he got hurt, and it was a whole different monster. That team was a lot different.
No, but and then and that was that's right when we were in college and right in the heart of everything. But just I saw that today where this is the worst draft since then, and only one player that really even you could say made it in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm looking at this class right now, and man, it's not good. Darius Miles, I remember him, but he wasn't good. Whew. It's not a good class. Yeah,
you probably had some high school kids that still were coming.
Miles Swift was the number 2. I think, was he out of LSU or was he out of high school? I don't even know.
I don't either. Who was
Chris
3?
Mim, remember Chris Mim from Texas?
Yeah, Fizer dunked all over him.
Yeah, Mike Miller wasn't bad. Wasn't he out of Florida?
Yeah, he's from South Dakota and went to Florida, yeah.
Yeah, him and Jamal Crawford are probably the cream of that crop. But this class could definitely end up that way. That's got to be the worst class I've ever seen, though, right there. Wow.
What was Mateen Cleaves drafted, like 14th, 15th?
14. Hito Turkoglu. I remember him. He was 16.
Was he drafted by Sacramento?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, because he was part of those teams that were really good and just couldn't get past the Lakers.
Mark Madsen, remember him? Yeah. He danced for the Lakers.
Yeah, Stanford.
Yeah,
he might actually be the Stanford head coach right now.
Yeah, there's some. I don't know a lot of these people. Mo Peterson, I think he was out of Michigan State too.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, this NBA draft, I don't even know who's supposed to be number 1. Star or Czar?
Some foreign guy, right?
Yeah, I think his name's Czar or Star, but he doesn't want to go to Atlanta. He wants to go to Washington. I was just watching Pardon the Interruption tonight, and they were talking about that. That's the only reason I knew that. So it'll be probably the least. Well, I bet the WNBA has more views than this does.
And I just think the NBA might be shooting themselves in the foot. Let's kind of get off this a little bit and go to the next thing is with losing TNT. Don't you just have to throw them the bone to keep Chuck and Charles and Kenny and EJ?
That's why usually on Thursday nights I'd watch NBA just because of that.
Yeah, who cares about the game, but
I'm still not sold that they won't be back maybe on a different network. They say they're done after this year, but that's a pretty good show for a sports show.
Or do you just think they do their own thing and just kind of?
I just don't think it won't be the end of us hearing from Charles. Can't keep his mouth that quiet. But yeah, I don't know. That's better TV than watching a regular season NBA game.
Oh yeah, because I even Charles does. You can tell when Charles is doing the NCAA tournament, he has no idea what's going on, zero chance. But it's just he'll make some statement, and it's
it's good. It's good to watch, but yeah, they're missing the boat there by losing that. That's for sure. What do you think of JJ Redick going to the Lakers?
Is he lying right to our faces when he said he didn't talk to LeBron until after he got the job?
That's hard to believe, but I don't know.
Don't you have to talk to LeBron?
Maybe
for not JJ Redick, you just want a job, but I guarantee Dan Hurley had to talk to LeBron, didn't he?
You would think. I thought JJ Redick answered he's like, I have no ill will being the second, fiddle to Dan Hurley. He goes, he's won 2 national championships. I've coached a 4th grade team.
Right.
He deserves $70 million. I don't.
Right.
And he let off with that. So, because he knew those questions were going to come. So he just kind of said it right to their face. And
Okay, so here's the thing. JJ Redick he's one of your prototypical Duke guys. He's not. You don't go to Duke and you're not dumb. Kyrie Irving, he's crazy and says some stupid stuff, but I read where he has one of the highest IQs in the NBA. Like he's really like actually a genius. Because you don't walk into Duke, they'll get basketball players into Duke easier than like if you and I were trying to get into Duke, but they're still not letting just anybody into Duke.
Yeah. No, I mean, he sounded pretty good. I mean, he's a very good communicator. But again, like we talked, it's all about what are you going to do in the playoffs? I mean, I think he's got enough players to get there. It's just a matter, can you keep them healthy? I mean, I do feel the Lakers probably need to get a higher seed because they get themselves in those 7, 8, 9 games. I mean, you got to go on the road and play the 1 seed right out of the gates. That's tough sledding. And then if you do upset them, now you got to go on the road again. And they'd have to win series after series on the road. But it's just you've got to try to get one of those top 3 seeds.
But in order to do that, LeBron's going to have to play more games.
Yeah, because they're not deep. They don't have a great bench. Anthony Davis tends to get injured a lot. So I don't know. We'll see. And the West is good.
Will they draft Bronny with their one and only pick as of right now?
Yeah, I don't know.
They can't, can they?
I heard they offered him a 3-year, $160 million contract right now. They're probably hoping he accepts that before the draft, so they don't have to draft him.
Yeah.
But does he even get drafted? That's the question.
He shouldn't. But his dad, I mean.
Unless LeBron's sitting in there saying, hey, I'll sign with you, but you better draft him.
Right. Can't you just agree to, like, okay, we'll sign him to a 2-way deal and not draft him like AJ Green got?
Yeah. That's what I think. He's going to not get drafted, and then the Lakers will probably sign him as like you said, let him go play in whatever they call it. But I don't know. I was just shocked that he left college. He probably could have got a lot of money in college from schools just off his name.
Right. Because all those schools would profit, when his dad comes and watches him, just sell those pictures and everything and make money off of them. Absolutely.
For sure.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. We're just shy of an hour here. Thanks a lot for joining us on short notice with Trev not being able to make it this week. And should see you tomorrow at golf.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.